Captain Jonah Rook had always been known for his bravery and daring maneuvers. As a top pilot in the Earth's exploration fleet, he had made a name for himself flying dangerous missions across uncharted space. But no matter how skilled he was, nothing could prepare him for what happened next. Jonah was navigating the outskirts of an uncharted star system, a sleek starfighter gliding through the cold void. The mission was routine, a simple reconnaissance task to map out any potential threats or resources in the region. The fleet had always been cautious about these unknown systems, especially when it came to new planets. But Jonah was confident. After all, he had been to countless unknown worlds, and none of them had ever posed a real threat. But as Jonah approached the center of the system, something unexpected happened. His console flickered, the lights inside his cockpit dimmed, and a deep, resonating hum filled the air. The ship jerked violently as if some unseen force had grabbed it, yanking it off course. Jonah quickly pulled up on the controls, trying to stabilize the ship, but it was no use. The systems were failing faster than he could react. His ship, the Wraith, was heading straight for a planet, damn it. Jonah cursed, gripping the control stick with all his might as the ship tumbled helplessly through space. The stars outside his window spun wildly as the atmosphere of the planet loomed ahead like a swirling wall. He quickly triggered the emergency beacon, hoping someone could pick it up, but there was no time for help. He was going down. With a final crash, the Wraith slammed into the planet's surface. The impact was violent, sending Jonah flying forward, his head smashing against the control panel. Pain shot through his skull as he fought to stay conscious. His vision blurred, but he managed to unbuckle himself from the restraints, gasping for air. The ship was a wreck. Sparks flew from the damaged consoles, and a strange, eerie silence filled the cockpit. The only sound was Jonah's heavy breathing as he wiped the blood from his forehead. He wasn't sure if the ship had crash-landed in the jungle or a forest, but he had to get out and assess the damage. With shaky hands, he opened the cockpit and climbed out. The planet around him was alive with color. Strange, vibrant trees stretched toward the sky, and the air smelled thick with unfamiliar fragrances. It was unlike any place Jonah had ever seen. The planet's atmosphere was breathable, but the temperature was warm and humid. His boots sunk into the soft ground as he stumbled forward. Jonah knew he had to act fast. His ship was a pile of metal scrap now, and without repairs, he would never be able to get back into space. His best hope was to find any nearby civilization, maybe. Some advanced species that could help him get back home to Earth. As he moved cautiously through the thick foliage, the world around him felt almost alive. The trees seemed to hum with energy, and there was an odd, faint glow to the plants. Everything was foreign. Even the sky above had an unnatural hue. With swirling clouds that seemed to change shape every few minutes, minutes turned into hours as Jonah trekked deeper into the jungle. He noticed the strange creatures that lived here large. Insect-like animals that scuttled through the underbrush, some with wings that shimmered in the dim light. Despite the beauty of the landscape, Jonah couldn't help but feel uneasy. There was something otherworldly about this place, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. Suddenly, loud crack echoed through the trees, followed by the soft rustle of movement. Jonah's instincts kicked in, and he dropped to one knee, drawing his sidearm. His breath caught in his throat as he scanned the area, waiting for something to appear. Out of the shadows emerged a figure, a creature, unlike anything Jonah had ever seen. It stood at least 7 feet tall, its skin a dark polished violet that shimmered like the night sky. Its body was sleek and muscular, with 4 arms, each ending in sharp, delicate fingers. The creature's eyes were wide and golden, glowing with a strange intensity. It had a regal presence about it, something that seemed to radiate power and authority. Jonah's finger hovered over the trigger. But before he could react, the creature spoke. Its voice was deep and smooth, a language Jonah couldn't understand. But there was something in the tone that was strangely calming. Then, the creature paused, its golden eyes narrowing as it studied him. Jonah was frozen, his heart pounding in his chest, unsure whether to trust the creature or prepare for a fight. But then, something unexpected happened. The alien's expression softened, and it made a sound something between a sigh and a laugh. It took a few cautious steps forward, and Jonah instinctively took a step back, his weapon still trained on the being. But then, something truly bizarre occurred. The creature's face, which had been stoic and impassive, changed. Its lips quivered, and a faint blush spread across its cheeks. Jonah's eyes widened in confusion. The creature was blushing. The sight was so strange that it almost felt human. And then, before Jonah could process what was happening, the creature spoke again, but this time, the words were different. They were clearer, almost as if it was deliberately trying to communicate with him. "You are not like the others," it said, its voice surprisingly soft and melodic. Jonah was still in shock. What are you?" The creature tilted its head slightly, as if considering how to answer. "I am Elira, ruler of the Zuva." The name didn't mean anything to Jonah. Zuva. Lyra nodded, her golden eyes never leaving his. "Yes, I am the queen of this land. And you are not like the others who have come before." Jonah was trying to process the situation, but it was too much. Here he was on a strange planet, speaking with an alien queen. The last thing he expected was for her to blush upon seeing him. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to invade your territory. I'm just stranded," Jonah said, his voice filled with uncertainty. "My ship, it crashed. Can you help me?" Elira's expression softened, and she took a step closer. "Your arrival is unexpected. Perhaps fate has brought you here for a reason." She smiled warmly, the faint blush still lingering on her cheeks. "Come with me. You will be safe." Jonah couldn't believe his ears. This alien queen was offering him help. He wasn't sure if it was a trick or some kind of trap, but something in her voice, something in the way she looked at him, told him that he could trust her. He lowered his weapon, though his heart was still racing. "Lead the way." Elira gestured for him to follow, and with a final glance at the wreckage of his ship, Jonah followed the mysterious queen deeper into the heart of the alien jungle. As he walked behind her, he couldn't help but wonder what kind of world he had crash-landed and what role he would play in the strange fate that awaited him. Jonah followed Queen Elira through the dense jungle, trying to keep up with her graceful strides. She moved effortlessly through the thick vegetation, her body swaying with a rhythm that seemed to come from the very ground beneath her. Jonah, on the other hand, was stumbling every few steps, trying to navigate the unfamiliar terrain while keeping an eye on his surroundings. The jungle was full of life-strange creatures flitted through the trees, and the air buzzed with an energy. Jonah couldn't quite place why. Lyra, however, seemed completely at ease, as if the jungle were her home. Jonah's mind was racing. A queen. He had been brought before an alien queen. It felt surreal, in his wildest dreams. He had never imagined encountering anything like this, let alone a queen of a powerful alien race. She glanced back at him. Over her shoulder, her golden eyes twinkling in the dim light. "You must be tired," she said softly. Her voice was melodic, almost hypnotic, as if every word carried a weight of wisdom and authority. "The journey ahead will not be easy, but I believe you are capable of far more than you realize." Jonah nodded, unsure how to respond. His head was still spinning from the crash and the unexpected encounter with Elira. "I'm just trying to keep up," he said, his voice a little hoarse from the dust and debris of the crash. Elira smiled, her lips curving up in a way that made Jonah's heart race. There was something about her presence that was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just her beauty, though. She was undeniably striking. With her deep violet skin and regal posture, it was something else, something more powerful, like an aura, that radiated from her. Jonah had never met anyone like her before. After walking for what felt like hours, they reached a clearing. In the center was a large ancient structure, massive stone building that looked like it had been here for centuries. Vines and flowers grew over the walls, giving the place an almost mystical look. The air here was thicker, charged with energy, that seemed to hum in the ground beneath Jonah's feet. "This is my home," Elira said, her voice filled with pride. "The palace of the Zulva was built long ago, during the height of our civilization. but those days are behind us. Jonah's curiosity grew. What do you mean by that? What happened to your people? Illyra's smile faded, replaced by a somber expression. Our civilization was once the most powerful in the galaxy. We were beings of unmatched strength, capable of harnessing the energy of the stars themselves. But over time, we lost our power, became weaker, our technology faded, and now we are nothing more than a shadow of our former glory. Jonah was quiet for a moment, processing her words. It seemed impossible. From what he had seen so far, the Zulva were an advanced species. Their queen was extraordinary, and their world seemed untouched by the struggles that most civilizations faced. Yet here she was, admitting that her people were on the brink of collapse. But you're still a queen, Jonah said, trying to understand. You must still have power. Lyra's eyes softened, and she looked away, as if avoiding the truth. Power is a relative thing. I am the queen, yes. But without the strength of my people, what is a queen? What is a ruler without her kingdom? We have lost the will to fight, Jonah. The energy that once flowed through our veins has diminished. Our enemies grow stronger by the day. Jonah felt a sudden pang of sympathy. Despite her regal bearing, Illyra seemed vulnerable, uncertain, almost fragile in a way. The confident, commanding queen he had first seen was now replaced by someone who seemed lost, someone who was struggling to hold on to her birthright. I didn't come here to make your problems worse, Jonah said, stepping closer to her. I didn't ask for this crash, but I'll help you. If there's anything I can do to help you save your people, I will. Lyra's gaze shifted back to him, her golden eyes locking with his. She studied him for a long moment, as if weighing his words. Then she spoke, her voice quiet but full of determination. You are not like the others, Jonah. Your people, the humans, are strange to us. But I believe you are the key to our survival. Jonah frowned. How can I help? I don't have any special powers. Illyra took a deep breath, her posture stiffening with the weight of what she was about to reveal. The Zulva were once able to draw energy from the stars themselves. We could harness the power of the universe, bend it to our will. But that power has faded, and now we are on the brink of extinction. There is only one way to restore our strength, by finding the lost artifact, the heart of the stars. It is said to be hidden deep within the heart of this world, guarded by ancient trials. Jonah's heart skipped a beat. A lost artifact? A key to their survival? It sounded like something out of a legend, not something grounded in reality. But seeing the seriousness in Illyra's eyes, Jonah knew she wasn't joking. Why haven't you found it already? Jonah asked. Illyra sighed, her expression darkening. We have searched for centuries, but the artifact is not something that can be easily obtained. It is hidden behind layers of protection, buried deep beneath the surface. And worse, there are those who would use it for their own gain. Powerful forces who will stop at nothing to get their hands on it. They have been hunting us for years, hoping to use the artifact to claim our power for themselves. Jonah felt a wave of anger rise within him. He had no idea what kind of enemies Illyra was talking about, but it didn't matter. If anyone was threatening her people, he would make sure they paid. We'll find it, Jonah said, his voice firm. You can count on me. Illyra smiled, a small but genuine smile. For a moment, she looked almost like a different person, the strong, confident queen who had first met him in the jungle. Thank you, Jonah. I knew I was right to trust you. The queen led Jonah deeper into the palace through grand hallways, lined with strange artifacts and tapestries that told the history of the Zulva people. As they walked, Illyra spoke more about the artifact and its importance. It was a relic of the Zulva's ancient power, the very heart of their civilization. Without it, they would remain weak and vulnerable to their enemies. Jonah listened, intently, absorbing every detail. He had no idea what he was getting into, but the idea of helping Illyra and her people restored something inside him. He had always been the kind of person who rose to the occasion, no matter how impossible. The task seemed, and now it seemed the galaxy had handed him one of the most important missions of his life. As they reached the throne room, Illyra stopped and turned to him. Tomorrow we will begin our search for the heart of the stars. Be ready. There is No turning back once we start. Jonah nodded, determined. I'm ready. Let's do this. Illyra's eyes softened, and for a moment the weight of the galaxy seemed to fall on her shoulders. But then she stood tall again, her regal demeanor. Returning, then we begin at dawn. Prepare yourself, Jonah. This will be the most dangerous journey of your life. And with that, she turned and walked into the grand chamber, leaving Jonah to think about what lay ahead. As he stood there, staring out at the stars through the open balcony, he couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose that he hadn't felt. In years, he wasn't just a pilot anymore. He was part of something bigger, something that could change the fate of an entire species. And maybe, just maybe, this strange new world could give him something he'd lost long ago, a reason to fight. Jonah stood at the entrance of the ancient temple, his heart pounding in his chest. The stone doorway loomed before him, covered in intricate carvings and symbols that he couldn't quite understand. Illyra had explained the importance of this place. The temple, hidden deep within the jungle, was where the heart of the stars had been locked away centuries ago. Protected by powerful trials designed to test those worthy enough to retrieve it. And now, Jonah had been chosen. Whether he was ready or not, Illyra stood beside him, her golden eyes steady as she gazed at the temple entrance. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a soft glow over the jungle, and the air was thick with anticipation. Jonah could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Are you sure about this? Jonah asked, glancing at Illyra. I mean, what exactly am I supposed to do in there? You said these trials are deadly? Illyra's gaze softened, but her expression remained firm. You are the key, Jonah. The trials will test your courage, your mind, and your strength. But you are the one who must face them. No one else. Only you can prove that you are worthy of the heart of the stars. Jonah nodded, though a knot of unease twisted in his stomach. He wasn't afraid of danger, but there was something about this something ancient and mysterious that made him feel small. The fate of an entire species rested on his shoulders, and all he could do was trust in himself. All right, Jonah said, exhaling slowly. Let's do this. With that, they stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the dark, cool interior of the temple. The moment Jonah entered, the air felt different. It was charged, like static electricity in the air, and the walls seemed to pulse with an unseen energy. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the stone floor, leading deeper into the temple. The entire place felt alive, like it was watching him. The moment they crossed the threshold, the door behind them slammed shut with a deafening boom. Jonah spun around, his hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm, but there was no time for that. The only way out was forward. Illyra gave him a reassuring look. Do not worry. The trials have already begun. Trust yourself. Jonah swallowed. Hardin nodded. His pulse was racing, but he forced himself to steady his breath. Right, I'll keep moving. As they ventured deeper into the temple, the air grew colder. Soon, they arrived at the first trial chamber, a vast hall with a high ceiling, far taller than any building Jonah had seen. At the far end of the chamber, a large stone pedestal stood, with an ornate golden artifact glowing faintly in the dim light. Jonah couldn't make out what it was from this distance, but it had to be the first test. The moment they entered the chamber, the walls trembled, and the ground beneath their feet shook. Suddenly the walls opened, revealing several large stone golems, massive humanoid figures made of solid rock. They slowly began to move there, eyes glowing a bright red as they turned toward Jonah and Illyra. There was no time for hesitation. Jonah immediately raised his gun, but Illyra stopped him with a hand on his arm. You must face them without weapons, she said, her voice calm. The first trial is a test of strength and skill. You must rely on yourself, not your technology. Jonah looked at her in disbelief. You've got to be kidding me. These things are massive. No warrior. I'm a pilot. Illyra nodded, her golden eyes serious. The trials will reveal your true potential, Jonah. Trust in your instincts. Before Jonah could respond, the golems lunged toward them. Their heavy footsteps shook the ground as they charged. Jonah's heart raced as he quickly stepped aside, narrowly dodging a massive stone fist that slammed into the ground where he had been standing moments before. Thinking quickly, Jonah grabbed a large rock from the floor and hurled it at the nearest golem, aiming for its glowing red eyes. The stone bounced off harmlessly, but it distracted the creature long enough for Jonah to slip past it. He dashed toward the center of the room, trying to find a way to outmaneuver the hulking creatures. His mind raced for any strategy, but it was hard to think with the heavy pounding of the golem's feet echoing through the chamber. Illyra was calm and collected, her movements graceful as she dodged the golem's attacks, easily avoiding their strikes. She wasn't using any weapons either, but Jonah could see that she was in complete control of the situation. Her eyes flashed with an otherworldly confidence. Jonah couldn't help but feel the pressure. He had to do something. He couldn't rely on just running or throwing rocks. If he wanted to pass this trial, he had to fight. As one of the golems charged toward him, Jonah didn't hesitate. He ran directly at the creature, dodging its swinging fists. At the last moment, he jumped, grabbing hold of the golem's arm, and using its own momentum to swing himself onto its back. He had no idea what he was doing, but somehow his instincts took over. He clung to the stone creature's back, and with a sudden, desperate twist, he pushed off, sending the golem crashing into the wall. It was only then that Jonah realized what he had done. The golem had crumbled into dust, its form disintegrating. As it hit the stone, it was as if the golem had never been solid at all. The realization hit him like a wave. The trial wasn't about brute strength, it was about adapting, thinking on his feet, and using the environment around him. Jonah quickly moved to the next golem, using the same strategy. This time, when it swung its massive fist, he ducked and slid between its legs, causing the creature to stumble and fall. Another golem crumbled to dust. Within minutes, Jonah had taken down 3 of the 5 golems. His confidence growing with each successful move. His body was tired, but his mind was sharp. As the final 2 golems advanced, Jonah jumped into the air, landing a well-placed kick to one of their heads. It exploded into pieces, and the last golem faltered, giving Jonah the opening he needed to take it down with a well-aimed strike to its chest. When the last golem collapsed into dust, Jonah stood, panting and covered in sweat, but victorious. He had passed the first trial. Illyra walked up to him, her eyes full of admiration. "You did well, Jonah. I knew you could do it." Jonah took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "I didn't think I could, but I did." Illyra smiled. "You are more than just a pilot, Jonah. You have the strength of a warrior, though you may not see it yet. The next trial awaits." Jonah nodded, feeling a strange sense of pride. He had survived the first trial, and now he knew he could survive whatever came next. But as he followed Illyra deeper into the temple, he couldn't help but wonder what other challenges lay ahead and whether he had the strength to face them. The temple was vast, its trials relentless. But with each step, Jonah was beginning to understand that he wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for something greater, the future of an entire species and the heart of the stars. Jonah wiped the sweat from his brow, his muscles aching from the first trial. His heart was still pounding, adrenaline coursing through him. He had passed the physical challenge. It wasn't easy, but somehow he had done it. Now, however, he couldn't help but wonder what the next trial would be. The air in the temple felt heavy, thick with the anticipation of what was to come. Illyra walked beside him, her expression calm. Though there was a glint of something deeper in her eyes, "The next trial will be different," she said, her voice soft, but carrying a weight that made Jonah focus. "It will not test your strength or your agility. This time, it will test your mind." Jonah raised an eyebrow, glancing at her. "Test my mind? I thought I was done with puzzles." Illyra smiled slightly, though there was no humor in it. "This trial is not about puzzles, Jonah. It is a test of your decision-making, your ability to think under pressure. The choices you make will determine whether you pass or fail." Jonah nodded. He'd always prided himself on his ability to think quickly, but this sounded different, more dangerous. "So what, I'm supposed to outsmart something?" Illyra's expression turned serious. "The trial will present you with many paths. Each path has its own consequences. The wrong decision could mean failure, or worse, death. The key is to trust yourself, trust your instincts, and make the right choice. Jonah felt a shiver run down his spine. He'd faced dangerous situations before, but this sounded like a mental game where one wrong move could have serious consequences. He wasn't sure if he was ready for this, but there was no turning back. He had come this far, had to keep going. They walked deeper into the temple, the walls growing narrower, the air colder, until they reached a massive chamber. The room was vast, with walls lined with mirrors that seemed to stretch endlessly. In the center of the room stood a large stone pedestal, identical to the one from the first trial. But this time, instead of a glowing artifact, there was a single orb shiny dark, the swirling with an eerie light. "The heart of the stars?" Jonah asked, his voice filled with wonder. "No," Illyria replied. "That is only a part of the trial. The true test lies within the orb. It contains the answers you seek, but it is not as simple as it seems." Jonah frowned, unsure of what she meant. Before he could ask further, the mirrors around them began to shimmer, and figures appeared within the reflections. The figures were not like any he had seen before holograms, perhaps, or illusions, though they looked as real as anything. There was one figure that caught his attention immediately. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing the same kind of uniform Jonah wore when he was a pilot. He looked just like Jonah, except this man was smiling. Jonah could feel a twinge of unease. There was something wrong about this. "Is this part of the trial?" Jonah asked, his voice tense. Illyria's expression remained unchanged, but there was a slight flicker of concern in her eyes. "Yes, the reflections are not what they seem. They are your fears, your desires, your regrets. They will try to confuse you to lead you astray." Jonah stared at the reflection of the man in the mirror. He didn't know why, but something about him made Jonah feel uneasy. It was like looking at a version of himself that he didn't recognize, someone who had taken a different path, made different choices. Suddenly, the reflection spoke, its voice smooth, confident just like Jonah's. "Why do you struggle so much? You know you can't win this trial. You're not strong enough. You're not smart enough. You never were." Jonah's stomach twisted at the words. He had heard that voice before in his mind, during the hardest moments of his life. The voice of doubt. The voice that told him he wasn't enough. His breath caught in his throat. The reflection continued, its smile widening. "Why do you think you were chosen for this? You're nothing but a pilot. You don't belong here. You never did. You don't have what it takes." Jonah's heart hammered in his chest. The words cut deep, stirring old memories of failure and inadequacy. He'd always felt like he wasn't enough, no matter how hard he tried. But the reflection's words were too harsh, too cruel. He had to fight back. Jonah stepped forward, his voice shaky but strong. "I'm not that person. Any more I've changed, I've fought for everything I've gotten. I belong here." The reflection's smile faded, replaced by a look of disdain. "You belong here? You're nothing but a mistake. A broken thing trying to fix itself." Jonah's pulse quickened. The reflection was wrong. He wasn't a mistake. Had worked for everything he had earned it. He had earned his place in the trials. But just as the reflection's cruel words began to dig deeper, another figure appeared in the mirror, woman this time. Jonah recognized her instantly. It was his mother, smiling warmly at him. Her eyes were filled with love, pride, and hope. She spoke softly, her voice full of reassurance. "Jonah, you are stronger than you realize. You've always had the strength to succeed. Don't let the doubts win. You can do this." It's a reflection of. His mother's face filled Jonah with a wave of warmth. He remembered everything she had done for him, the sacrifices, the love, and the unwavering belief that he was capable of greatness. This was the voice he needed to hear, the voice that had always lifted him up, even when he couldn't lift himself. Jonah turned back to the cruel reflection, his chest rising and falling with steady breaths. "I'm not broken, not a mistake. I've fought my whole life. I'm going to fight for this too." The reflection seemed to flicker, then shattered like glass, dissolving into the air. Jonah turned to face the orb, his heart still racing, but filled with newfound determination. This trial had been a test of his mind, his ability to conquer his doubts, to rise above his fears. He knew now that the greatest battle wasn't against external enemies. It was against himself, against the voices that told him he couldn't. Jonah stepped forward, his hand reaching out toward the orb. As his fingers brushed against the smooth surface, the chamber around him began to glow, the mirrors vanishing one by one. A deep hum filled the air. The orb began to pulse with energy. "You have passed the trial of the mind," Elira said, her voice calm and approving. "Your greatest enemy was within you, but you overcame it." Jonah smiled, feeling a sense of pride he hadn't felt in a long time. He had faced his inner demons and come out stronger for it. The weight of the temple had seemed unbearable at first, but now it felt lighter. He was ready for whatever came next. Elira stepped forward, her golden eyes bright with respect. "You're closer now, Jonah. The heart of the stars awaits. There is still one trial left. Are you ready?" Jonah nodded, his mind sharp and clear. "I'm ready." With that, they turned toward the next chamber, where the final trial awaited. Jonah had thought the worst was behind him, but as he stepped into the final chamber, he realized just how wrong he had been. The air in this room was thick with an ominous energy, and the walls felt like they were closing in on him. The stone floor beneath his boots seemed to vibrate with a low hum, as if the very temple itself was alive, watching him, waiting. Elira walked beside him, her usual calm demeanor now replaced by a certain solemnity. She didn't speak, but Jonah could tell that the gravity of the situation had finally settled on her as well. This wasn't just another trial, this was the final one. The one that would decide everything. The chamber before them was vast, and the ceiling stretched so high it was impossible to see where it ended. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly in the dim light, their meanings impossible to decipher. In the center of the room was a large pedestal, similar to the ones Jonah had seen in the previous trials. On top of it, the heart of the stars, an orb of radiant, shimmering energy sat, suspended in the air, glowing brightly. Jonah's heart skipped a beat as he stared at it. This was it. This was what he had been fighting for all along. The heart of the stars, the artifact. That could save his people, his planet. The key to everything. He could feel its power, its energy, radiating through the air. Almost like a beacon calling to him. But as Jonah stepped forward, a voice boomed deep and commanding, filling the entire chamber. "You have come far, human," the voice said, its tone echoing through the room. "You have proven your strength, your mind, your will. But the final trial will not be so easily passed. You must face the ultimate test." Jonah's steps faltered, and his gaze flickered around the room, trying to find the source of the voice. But there was no one there. It was as if the very air itself was speaking to him. A chill ran down his spine, and he turned to Elira. "What is this?" he asked, his voice tight with uncertainty. Elira's golden eyes were fixed on the pedestal, but her expression was unreadable. "This is the trial of the soul. The test that will determine whether you are truly worthy of the heart of the stars. It is not just your body or your mind that will be tested now, but your very essence." Jonah felt a lump form in his throat. "What does that mean?" The voice spoke again, this time even louder, as if it were coming from everywhere at once. "You have come seeking power, seeking to save your people. But power can corrupt, Jonah. It can twist even the most noble of intentions. Are you truly capable of bearing such power? Can you control the heart of the stars without letting it consume you?" Jonah's stomach churned. The weight of the words pressed down on him. He had never thought of power as something that could corrupt. He had only ever seen it as a tool, something to be used for the good of his people. But now, he wasn't so sure. The voice continued, "You must make a choice. Jonah, you can take the heart of the stars and use its power, or you can leave it behind, knowing that you are not yet ready. Choose wisely, for this choice will shape the future of your world." The chamber seemed to grow darker, and Jonah's mind raced. He had come so far. He had proven himself worthy in every trial. He had faced physical danger, conquered his own doubts, and overcame every challenge that had been thrown at him. But now, he was faced with a decision that went beyond strength or intelligence. This was a choice about who he was, what he believed in, and what kind of person he wanted to be. He looked at the heart of the stars again. It was so beautiful, so powerful. It was everything his people needed. It was the key to their survival, the hope for their future. He could feel its energy calling to him, urging him to take it. But what would it mean if he took it? It do to him? Would it change him? Would he become someone he didn't recognize? Jonah closed his eyes and took a deep breath. His mind raced back to everything that had brought him here. The people who had believed in him. His mother's voice, telling him he was capable. Iliad's words, reminding him that he was stronger than he thought. He had always fought for others, for the greater good. But this was different. This wasn't just a battle he was fighting. This was a decision that would define him forever. "I'm not afraid of power," Jonah said aloud, his voice steady. "I'm afraid of what I might become if I let it control me." The voice in the chamber seemed to pause, as if considering his words. Then it spoke again, this time with a gentler tone. "Then you have passed the final trial, Jonah. You have chosen the right path." Jonah felt a surge of relief wash over him. But even as the tension in the room began to fade, he knew that the trial wasn't truly over. The decision he had just made had been important, but now he needed to prove that he could control the power he sought. With one last glance at Illyra, Jonah stepped forward and reached out toward the heart of the stars. As his fingers brushed against it, a shock of energy coursed through his body, but it was not painful. It was electric, alive, and it filled him with a sense of purpose he had never known before. The heart of the stars responded to him, as if it recognized his intent. The chamber around him began to shift, the walls fading into a blur of light and color. Jonah's surroundings melted away, and for a moment he felt weightless, suspended in a vast sea of stars. He could hear the voice again, but now it was inside his mind, speaking directly to him. "You have proven yourself worthy. Jonah, you have faced every trial and conquered them. The power of the heart of the stars is now yours. But remember, it is not to be used lightly. Use it to guide your people, not to rule them. Let it empower you, but do not let it control you." Jonah nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility settle on his shoulders. He understood. The heart of the stars was not just a tool, it was a symbol, a reminder of the trust placed in him. The stars faded, and the chamber returned to normal. Jonah was standing once again in the temple, the heart of the stars now resting in his hands. Illyra stepped forward, her eyes wide with admiration. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with awe. "You've passed every trial." Heart of the stars? Jonah looked down at the orb, feeling the power within it. But more than that, he felt the sense of responsibility, the weight of the choices he would have to make in the future. He wasn't just a pilot. He was now something more, a leader, a protector, and a symbol of hope. "I couldn't have done it without you," Jonah said, turning to Illyra. "Thank you for believing in me." Illyra smiled. "You were always the one who believed in yourself, Jonah. Now you have the power to shape your world." With the heart of the stars in his hands and the knowledge that he had passed the final trial, Jonah felt ready for whatever came next. The journey was far from over, but he knew one thing for certain. He would face the future with strength, wisdom, and the will to protect those he loved. And with that, he turned toward the future, ready to lead his people into a new era.